Hi, this is John Rosenhead, Jerusalem psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post for Parshas Chayei Sarah is titled Changing the Narrative, because we're going to have a look at the idea behind narrative therapy. And on a simple, you could say a basic understanding of narrative therapy is that it tries to help a person to develop and create a separation between themselves and the difficulties between themselves and the struggles that they have, that is not necessarily inherently part of them. That there is a way of making a distinction between a person and their identity and their characteristics and their personality and the way that they live their life, that can be seen in separation from their problems. They are not their problems. So this is a process of externalization. And also in a way that what narrative therapy does is it helps a person to change the narrative, that the way that they view their life and their problems in a way is a narrative that they have told themselves, a narrative that they have created, where they are the central protagonist, they are at the center of the story, everything surrounds them. And this is, in a way, creates a certain level of self-blame and also a sense of hopelessness. That this story and the struggles that they have, it's so tied up within their own identity that they can't even see their life as a separate entity from their difficulties and from their struggles. So through narrative therapy, it helps a person to actually to create a new narrative, to tell the story of their life and of themselves in a way that creates a separation, and it actually creates a way of viewing and in a way analyzing their life in a more objective way. And this rewriting of the narrative can actually be seen in this week's parsha in Chayei Sarah. That if we look at Eliezer's role that he was given a task to go and look for a wife for Yitzchak. And actually, if we look at the Psukim, Eliezer obviously has a very central role. And he's not just a shaliach, that he is sent to find someone and in a way just to carry out this job. We actually see that it was obviously he understood the significance of what it means to find a wife for Yitzchak, to find the future mother of the Bnei Yisrael that's going to create this nation. And it was his role to carry out this task. So we see actually that we are told in detail about the process that Eliezer went through in looking for a wife. And not only that, it seems to be that he, in a way, ostensibly, we can see that perhaps Eliezer is one that is bringing about and is actually the central protagonist in this story. On a superficial level, he even says when he goes towards the well, where he presents this idea that there are certain signs that he said, if I see a girl or a woman that acts in this certain way, then that will be a sign that this is the right wife for Yitzchak. And he seems to be creating what would be a test or a challenge to see what happens. Perhaps in a way, he's sort of being the person that is assessing and determining what's going to happen here. But then we are told, when he finds Rivka and he goes to meet the family, we are told in great detail about the whole process that Eliezer went through in finding the right woman to marry Yitzchak. He goes over, the Pesukim go in great length and detail over every single aspect, with slight deviations. Eliezer changes the story a little bit. The story has in a way, he deviates from the original telling of the story. This is the changing of the narrative. Why does this need to happen? There are a number of explanations of why there are why the wording of the Pesukim deviate from in the different accounts of the story. And one explanation I'd like to suggest plays into this idea of narrative therapy, in that the Medrash says that Eliezer wanted to perhaps marry off his own son, to his own daughter, to Yitzchak. That perhaps, and this is interpreted as well by the Kotzker Rebbe on a subconscious level, Eliezer was holding out that perhaps this actually won't work. This search, this challenge, this role that I have to find a wife. Maybe it won't be successful, but I don't actually want it to be successful because I want my own son, I want my own daughter to marry Yitzchak. So we see a certain idea, maybe perhaps on a subconscious level, how he views this as Eliezer views it as his own account, his own story, his own actual individual personal interest about what's going on. But in retelling the narrative, we see that he actually gives a time and an opportunity to go through and actually realize and process how everything was from Hashem, to give gratitude and appreciation to HaKadosh Baruch who made this whole event happen because Hashem determined that this is what needs to happen. And it was so clear to Eliezer that this was the right person to marry Yitzchak. And in a sense, it's a retelling of the narrative. It's a narrative therapy for Eliezer to actually make some sort of a separation between his own personal interest, perhaps as is suggested by the Medrash, to make a separation between his own internal, personal, subjective interest, and to be able to look at it in a more objective level, to explain and see how Rivka is actually the perfect wife for Yitzchak, and Hashem has made this all happen, but through the Hashgacha Pratis of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, this is the significance that we can say of rewriting, of retelling the narrative for Eliezer in this context. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.